Well, y'all, we finally have Champagne d'Argent babies. Belle had 7 of them around 2 a.m., so I guess threatening to eat her worked this time. So if you have a doe that you think is pregnant, there's a couple of things you can do. Because I like 2 avenues of kind of confirming a pregnancy or not. What I'll do is, before I breed a doe, I'll get a weight on her, and then 2 weeks later, I'll get another weight. Because in theory, if she's pregnant, she should have a pretty substantial gain. Normally, I see anywhere from 3 to 6 ounces in 2 weeks, which isn't normal for an adult rabbit of breeding age. The next thing you can do is palpate, and palpate is basically where you feel both uterine horns, and as you put your fingers up there, they feel almost like squishy little grapes. Or marbles. But it's not like hard marbles, it's just marbles. And if you get really good, you can actually count the kits. Now, I'm kind of mediocre at palpating, which is why I also like getting a weight in. So, there's that. But also I find it's really hard to tell if a doe is pregnant if she has an excess amount of internal fat or if the litter is very small. Another thing I really like to do is when they get really, really close, I mean super close to having their babies, you can actually see and feel the kits kicking in mommy's belly. Like when she does, we call it the pregnancy flop, so she's kind of laying on her side constantly because it's so uncomfortable to be pregnant. Been there, done that. You can see the tiny kicks of kits and you can feel it. So there's some ideas for you. Like I said, palpating can be kind of difficult at first. What I would do is I would take a doe that you know isn't pregnant and feel her before you feel another doe so you can kind of tell the difference. And through time and trial and error, you can get better at it. So yes, I'm going to continue threatening Belle with the dinner table to see if we can continue this very lucky streak. But I'm just happy she had a litter at all. Like, I am elated. So normally out of a single litter, the most I will keep is 1, maybe 2. But out of this litter, if need be, I'm going to keep a boy and a girl, definitely. Now there are 7 in here, so hopefully they all make it. So if there is an extra doe, I have somebody who has been on my wait list for 6 months just waiting for her to have a champagne doe for their meat mutt program. So I have a doe that will hopefully be leaving the farm as long as we don't have a litter of entirely boys. But other than that, I might keep an extra doe out of this litter as well, just in case. Like an heir and a spare, because I don't know if Belle will give me another litter after this. So I'm very, very nervous about not keeping an extra. And to be honest, I've joked with my husband at one point that I'm just going to keep this whole litter. Just because I am so nervous about not having backups, and now that I have the potential for backups, I'm panicking in the opposite direction of I need to hoard. But one is definitely going to leave with my friend Andrew because he has been so patient and so kind in this endeavor. But yeah, look at the tiny babies. I'm so excited. So it is that time of the month where I start going through my records and my catalogs and seeing if a doe should be bred and when they should be bred. So now that we have had Belle have her litter, I'm pretty sure 2 and Hawk are not going to have babies, but I'll give them another day or so. Just to be sure. So I'll breed them if I want to rebreed them later on down the week once they hit a week past due. But for my other does that either currently have litters with them or this is their first litters, I need to do a bit of management. So if it's a first-time mom, I'm looking for a mom that has reached about 90% of her adult weight and is over 6 months old. If it's a larger breed, normally I try to wait till like 9 months old, just to be sure that they are mentally and physically developed enough to where they can have the babies. Now, if it's a doe I've bred before, I do something a little bit different. If they have babies with them, I want to wait until those babies are at least 4 weeks of age before I rebreed her. And then I want to get a good weight on her and make sure that she has gained everything back from that pregnancy and nursing before I rebreed. So the animals I'm looking at breeding this next time are as follows. We're looking at breeding hawk, we're looking at breeding penguin, we're looking at breeding Vanessa, we're looking at breeding 1. That's 4 does. So that should give us a good chance of having at least 2 moms at a time, just in case we do need a foster. With how hot it's been, I don't think more than 2 are going to catch, but we'll definitely try. Now what we'll do is we will breed penguin with strawberry again. I'm going to see if I can breed Vanessa to Wiley and if he is mature enough for that yet. And then of course my 2 Cali does will get bred with Freak. It hasn't been getting over 80 degrees in the barn and has been staying in the mid 70s, so I shouldn't have to worry about heat sterilization. But I'm super excited to get into this next round of kits. So this comment came up on one of my older videos. It was one of my very first videos to go viral, in which I had a bunch of Californians in cages and I was going over who we were culling and why. And this person was coming to my defense when it came to somebody else who was arguing the point of it was cruel of me to eat my own animals after they no longer became useful, and I should try to rehome them as pets, take them to a shelter, or let them loose in the wild. And the last one always gets me, when somebody's just like, oh, let your rabbits loose, especially when considering the fact that these rabbits, for one, they're not going to survive out in the wild, and for 2, they're an invasive species to the areas that we live. So instead of them having a quick and painless death, they would have a slow, horrible death of either starving or dying of disease. But when it comes to people looking for pet rabbits, I highly encourage you to look for an ethical breeder that does sell pets. And if you can, stay away from backyard breeders. Find a breed that you like and learn its standard of perfection. Then go onto the ARBA site and press find a local breeder near me. And you can find a lot of local breeders that are ethical. Or look up the parent club of that breed. So for instance, if you really want a Holland Lop as a pet, look up Holland Lop clubs, and they'll be able to bring you up Holland Lop clubs for your state, your county, your district, and it'll allow you to find a reputable breeder. And if that's not the route you want to go, there is always adoption through shelters, because there is a massive surplus of rabbits, as this commenter points out, in shelters. But I implore you, if you can, stay away from backyard breeders, just like you would with ethical dog breeding. Stay away from trendy colors and mixes if you can. And that's just because, for one, you don't want to supply an unethical breeder that is going to continue breeding out of standard and adding to the populace of rabbits that are being added to shelters in the long run. And you want to ensure that you have a healthy rabbit that isn't going to give you issues and will have a very long and fulfilling life with you. Pet rabbits are a wonderful addition to any family, but I do encourage more education and more research before jumping into the commitment, because there are some breeds that can live anywhere from 7 to 10 years. So it's early, I'm doing my morning feed, and I kind of go through like a blank haze moment sometimes when I'm dumping, and I move my barn around where there are no cages in the middle and everything's just on stacks again. So I'm going through my bucks, and all of my bucks get a full scoop of feed other than Strawberry, because Strawberry is on a very strict diet. But Strawberry is also in between 2 cages of babies. So we have all of the bucks on top here. At the bottom we have our babies, and then we have Mr. Strawberry's cage right there. So I'm going through going, cup for you, cup for you, cup for you. And I stare my man Strawberry right in the eyes as I take an entire cup of feed and throw it into his bowl. He's been getting an 1/8 cup of feed twice a day because of how fat he is, even on a diet. So we have weaned down to an 1/8 of a cup in the morning and an 1/8 a cup at night to see if we can slowly bring his weight down instead of him gaining on a diet. I probably stared at him for a good minute watching him eat, just in love with him because Strawberry's my favorite buck, before I went, oh shit. That's way too much feed for him. My man was not happy when I took that bowl away, let me tell you. So yeah, I definitely overfed Strawberry this morning. Also, while I have y'all in here, if y'all have rabbits that don't like to pee into their pans and they like to pee out into corners, I got a new trick for you. Pelletized bedding. It's literally just sawdust that's compacted into pellets. And this stuff is amazing for moisture control in the barn, because this monster right here doesn't like to pee down. She likes to pee sideways. So she has this puddle that sits underneath her cage because of how she pees. So we're doing the pelletized bedding to help absorb that, because Little Miss decides she needs to pee on other people. It's always a morning with these guys, I swear. So when it comes to raising meat rabbits, if y'all have any questions, you can always leave them in the comments and I can save them into my drafts and I just go through and answer them. So when getting started with meat rabbits, I always suggest getting a commercial meat breed if possible. One, they're very easy to find, they're on the cheaper end when it comes to rabbits, and you get the most bang for your buck. So something like a Californian or a New Zealand would be perfect. Rex are pretty good, but they're a little slower growing. Their fur is outstanding. And of course, I'm a sucker for silver fox. When it comes to feeding, I feed a 1/4 cup of pellet per pound of body weight. But when it comes to maintenance, a lot of times my larger meat breeds get about a cup in the morning and a cup at night. And then of course, hay for enrichment. Or if they're having belly issues, I'll take them completely off of feed and just put them on hay until said GI issues are fixed. I love Do More cages. Pet Lodge cages are a close second, but there's also this site called All Things Bunny that has amazing cages as well. When it comes to butchering, my preference is to butcher at 5 pounds. At least for my meat breeds. When it comes to the mini Rex, it's a little more convoluted. The faster I can get my babies up to 5 pounds, the better my feed to weight ratios for a profit. Meaning the less feed I can put into them to get them to 5 pounds, the more money I keep in my pocket not giving out to feed. For my Californians, that can be anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks. For my other meat breeds, it's anywhere from 12 to 16 normally. Silver fox grow faster than the Rex. The Rex are the ones that take the longest. When it comes to raising meat rabbits, you want to take it slow. Start with either a duo or a trio and work your way through it. To be honest, butchering out that first litter is normally what gets everyone kind of skeeved out and kind of tells you whether it's going to make you or break you as a meat breeder. Also, you can tell a lot by the health of your rabbit by their fecal matter. Learn what their poops are supposed to look like. Then also learn your basic rabbit nutrition, rabbit digestive system, and breeding cycles. When should a rabbit be bred? How long is its gestational period? When should you wean? When do your rabbits reach sexual maturity when it comes to kits? When should you separate them out from mom and from each other? And I always suggest to have a cage per adult and then 2 cages per breeding pair on top of that. So if you were to get a breeding pair of rabbits, I would suggest 2 adult cages, 1 for mom, 1 for dad, and 2 grow out cages, 1 for boys, 1 for girls. But I think that covers just my basics. I'm going to preface this question by saying that all rabbits are edible. With that being said, not all rabbits make the most adequate meat rabbits from a standpoint of size, bone to meat ratio, or output productivity. So for instance, I advise most people stay away from any mini breeds. Mini Rex, Mini Lop, Bretagne Petite. Basically anything that's supposed to stay under 5 pounds is not going to make a great meat rabbit. They're edible, it's just not necessarily worth the amount of money you're going to put into feed for the output of meat to have. Stick with meat breeds. Californians, New Zealand's, Silver Foxes, Rex, Champagne d'Argent, Cream d'Argents, Americans, there's a lot more that I can't think of off the top of my head, but basically any meat breed rabbit that are specifically bred for meat is going to be your best option. Commercial meat rabbits are the best though when it comes to output and size and growth. And of course, I'm going to mention Flemish just from a standpoint of somebody's going to be like, Flemish Giants, Flemish Giants. I don't like Flemish Giants just because of bone to meat output when it comes to their size in comparison to a 5-pound Californian. But if you like Flemish Giants or other giant breeds, don't let me stop you. Those are still better than mini breeds. But for anyone curious, I have not noticed a taste difference between my mini breeds and my meat breeds. They all just taste like rabbit. So when I talk about type when it comes to breeding rabbits, I'm talking about their body type most of the time. and how they look, and that's based off of the standard of perfection set out by the ARBA. And though I do follow the standard of perfection because I want to show these animals, there is another reason. And that's for my meat rabbits, which are commercial types. The closer you are to the type put out by the ARBA, the higher meat yield you will have. And that's because the commercial standard allows for a frame that collects the most meat in the shortest amount of time. Now, when we're talking about a higher chance of breeding a certain way, there could be arguments towards a more correct type makes it easier for a doe to have a pregnancy and kindle. So for instance, if she has a commercial type or a compact type, she has that nice rounded frame, which means she has wide hips and an easier area for the kits to get through, compared to an animal that is ill-bred that would have a pinched hindquarter, making it harder for her to have kits. Or how you kind of see a lot of compact types turning into these little hunchbacked animals. It kind of looks like the pug of the rabbit community. I hate those overly squished up, compact, teardrop shaped animals that are more height than depth because they're not balanced and it's horrible for the animal. But that's a whole thing to get into. Those things have a crap ton of health problems. They have problems with producing babies, and a lot of times they have a very, very shortened lifespan. Now, when it comes to things such as how fur color should be, or how nails should be, or eyes, that has to do with genetic correctness when it comes to color combinations and different undertones when it comes to dilute. But mostly what you want to look for when it comes to a good rabbit is correct type. The other stuff is just icing on the cake.